the popular frozen drinks designed to appeal to youngsters thanks to their sweet taste and bright colours.
Yeah, not just youngsters,
I know you love them, don't you?
Parents, though, have been warned not to give slushies to anyone under the age of 8 after a spate of children were left hospitalised after consuming the drinks.
One of those children was 3-year-old Angus, who collapsed to the floor after drinking a raspberry-flavoured slushie. Angus's mum, Victoria, joins us now alongside Dr Zoe to tell us more. So can you tell us a little bit about the day and what happened?
Yeah, so we were just heading out for the day. It was a normal day. We were all up getting ready, and our 3 oldest boys were going out for the day with our gran and granda. So myself and Dad and Angus and our wee girl Grace, we decided we'd go out for a while, and we came across a shop which had a coffee machine, and beside that was the slush machine. So Angus was like asking for the slushie, and he picked, like, of course he would pick the biggest cup that was there. And then he drank that, and he was really enjoying it, but then he was coming like quite like cold, but there was no really like obvious signs or anything like that. So we went up into our local B&M store, and he had a wee accident still. I didn't really think, like, I just thought it was because the slushie was like cold. It was a cold day. So I had a wee accident, and then he said he wanted to go home.
So suddenly, from being pretty
Just,
engaged
like,
and enjoying
really
himself,
fine, and then
gets cold and says, "Mum, I want to go home."
And I had a wee accident. Then after that, he sort of walked up another wee aisle in B&M, and he said again, "Mum, I want to go home." I said, "Dad's just going for the last, like, couple of things that we need."
Yeah.
So he had, like, walked up round the corner, and I looked behind me, but because I had the pram, I hadn't noticed straight away that it wasn't beside me. So I looked back another wee bit, and it was just lying on the floor, like, really lifeless.
So, Victoria, can I ask you, had he ever had a slushie before, and how old was he?
No, he's never had a slush before, no.
Right. And how old was he when he had that?
He was 3.
So, and when you say he had an accident, he didn't make it to the toilet, so he went very cold and he peed too?
Yeah.
Right.
And then suddenly he's collapsed on the floor, Victoria. I can't begin to imagine how that made you feel.
It was really scary. It was just happened so quick, and I started screaming that help, and somebody phoned an ambulance. The staff members in B&M that day went above and beyond, and they were really helpful. They phoned an ambulance. One of the staff members had been ran over to the local Tesco's to get the defibrillator, because they were told that on the phone, that, like, to go and collect one from the nearest point. As they were bringing it back, the ambulance arrived on scene along with air ambulance as well. And then the ambulance members came in and started working on Angus with the defibrillator. I was still screaming. I didn't know what was going on. It was just really unknown. I didn't think that that's what had made him, like, so sick that day.
So you had no idea at this stage. Suddenly your son had just collapsed for seemingly no reason.
Yeah.
And you've got paramedics working on him with a defibrillator.
Yeah.
Was he out cold, or was he fitting, or what was he like at the time? Was it like
I think he'd had a seizure, but I didn't, like, see the full thing, because at the time I had the pram, so I wasn't like, you know, fully aware until I turned the corner and thought, no, something isn't right.
Yeah. And what went through your mind at that point?
I couldn't tell you at the time. It was just so scary. I just knew there had been something wrong.
And you've got older boys as well, haven't you? Had they had slushies in the past? Have you had any?
They had shared one in the summertime before, but it wasn't something that I always went and, like, bought them as a treat or anything.
No, and it wasn't something that you would have thought could have caused this sort of issue. So Angus then goes to hospital and he's looked after. He stays in overnight. What did the doctors say to you about why he was there and what had happened? When did you find out?
So they had ran some, like, blood tests through, and then came back to me and said that it was the slush puppy he'd drank that day.
And why had it caused that issue?
It was due to the glycerol that keeps it frozen.
And the glycerol means that he'd had some sort of fit because of the glycerol in the system?
Yeah.
And so then how did they treat him, and how long did it take him to get back to normal again?
He stayed in the hospital overnight just for one night with close observations, and then he got let home the next day.
And when they came to you and spoke to you about it, did the doctor say, we've seen this before, or I'd never heard of this before?
No, they did tell me that they had never, like, known anything like this before.
Wow.
Zoe, you've sat and you've listened to Victoria tell that story.
Yeah.
Any parent would be
Isn't it?
absolutely terrified by what she said. Seemingly an innocuous drink that is sold and has caused this without knowing. Can you just explain a little bit about how it happened and why it happened?
Yeah, so it's the glycerol content. So glycerol is a food additive that's deemed to be relatively safe. It's in lots of foods. So I've got a list here. It's in cheeses, processed meats, sweet beverages, chewing gum, cereal bars. It's even in tortilla wraps. And what it does, especially why it's in slushy drinks, is it stops it becoming an ice solid. It stops it freezing.
Right.
So it keeps foods moist. So it's in lots of foods. But in these slush drinks in recent years, because there is pressure on the industry to remove sugar from drinks and beverages especially, the content, the amount of glycerol has gone up. So glycerol is a sweetener, and it also stops it from freezing. So the amount of glycerol in these drinks has gone up, the concentration. Now, if you're somebody who's got a low body weight, a large slushie, there may be enough glycerol in that to cause what happened here. It's called glycerol intoxication syndrome, and it's not only happened to Angus. There are around roughly 20 children in the UK and Ireland where it's now, looking back, the BMJ have done a review and found that in small children, if they have a high enough dose, then, so Ben, you'd be fine having a slushie, but a small child may not be.
Sure.
So there is voluntary guidance from the Food Standards Agency currently, which says children under the age of 4 shouldn't have slushies,
Right.
and children under the age of 8 should only have one. But the BMJ and some scientists and experts are calling for that to be changed, and either the weight of the child, but that gets very confusing for parents.
Of course.
But
Put them on a weighing scales before you
Yeah.
give them the slushy.
yeah, so the easiest way they're suggesting is actually they should raise the age to 8. So children under the age of up to the age of 8 shouldn't have slushies at all.
Yeah.
And really everybody should just be thinking about maybe just having one, and certainly not having free refills, which are offered, I believe, in some establishments.
You're a mum,
as
though.
well.
You've got a little one.
And do you know what? It's purely by coincidence. My little one, who's 3 years old, asked me for a slushie last week. We were at a trampoline park, these sort of places.
It's always
and
kids' places.
and there were lots of birthday parties happening there. And, of course, a slushie is not something your child should be drinking regularly anyway. There's no nutritional benefit to it. But as a treat, once in a while, alongside, other types of treats, it's something that I think we've had when we were children.
Totally, or a candy floss at the fair.
Exactly.
Or, it's exactly that.
So he asked me for one, and I guess it was I actually said to him, no, you can't have it till you're 12. I don't know where that came from. That just came out as a natural instinct. But, some people are calling for them to be banned together, and I completely understand why, and I think that's something that you feel, don't you?
Yeah.
But if we start banning slushies, there are probably lots of other things out there that we should be thinking about banning as well. So demonising glycerol as a food additive on its own is probably not the answer.
No.
But I absolutely think that it is important that we're looking at how we prevent this from happening and ensure that parents are aware of the risks, which is why this is so important.
So, Dr Zoe, if someone, just so parents are aware, because I'd never heard of this ever, and we go to exactly those places, and my kids have had a slushie before, for sure. What should you be looking for? Obviously, always get a very small one, if you can. And what are you looking for? What are the symptoms?
So the symptoms that Alfie had were quite severe. So he had this syndrome. What's actually happening in the body is your body, it's like getting dehydrated. So the glycerol actually sucks a lot of the water in the body into the blood system.
Right.
So it's a bit like when you're in a hot bath and you stand up quickly.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So the sort of commonest symptoms are nausea and headache, and deemed quite mild. But what actually happened is you can get a low amount of volume. You can get dehydrated, essentially being dehydrated, so hypovolemic shock.
Right.
You can get a low blood glucose as well, so hypoglycemia. It alters the amount of salts in your blood, the potassium in your blood. So essentially, that can make you very, very unwell. And as we've seen in
We did with Angus's
around
case.
20
Quite
children.
quickly.
Well, look, the good news is Angus is absolutely fine now. He's just over there with Vicky. Come on in, Angus. Come and say hello.
Hello,
Come
you.
see your mum.
How are you doing? Yeah! Hi, gorgeous.
Hello.
Oh,
And he's doing fine now.
Mama.
He's doing so well.
And what's your advice to parents out there that have got little ones that fancy a little treat like that?
Just would not
Don't take the
recommend
risk.
it. I would rather they would get banned, but I don't think that will ever happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I think that's lovely to see you, Angus. He's like, I don't care, I've got my mama and
He was
I don't
bouncing
care.
around downstairs having a lovely time.
Aww.
Well, I'm glad to see that he's back and he's full of beans and everything's good.
And thank you for coming on and chatting about it, because I'd never heard of that ever before. So it's just good for everybody to be aware of.
I think there are so many people out there, this will be the first time they've become aware, and, you know, now people will take caution where they may not have done before, and that's so important.
Absolutely. Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks, Angus. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.